Hey guys, welcome back on Power Up with Sarvesh. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do subscribe to the channel so that you can get notification of newly uploaded videos. In today's video, we are going to look at how to trigger a flow only when it is required. This is my test SharePoint list. This is a flow which I have created, and this is a test app using which we are going to add a tenant's record, and that's the Outlook where we are going to get the notification. I'll just show you what flow I have built. I'll just edit this flow. So when the tenant's request or record is added in the system, I want to update that record with the instance URL, instance of this workflow, and then I want to send a notification for approval. So, and once the approval is completed, I want to update the status back. So I'm updating the same record twice in this flow. So what will happen if you are updating a record? Now the trigger what you are looking at here is the item is created or modified. And then in the same flow, I'm updating the same record. So imagine what will happen when you run this flow, when you create a tenant's record, and if these flows get run, when the tenant is created, the flow will run first time. And as you have update item inside this flow, this action will trigger the flow again and again and again. So it will go in infinite loop. So let's see what happens. I haven't added any trigger condition here. So I'll just save this flow. And even if you see here, there's a warning shown. Action in this flow may result in infinite trigger loop. Please ensure that you add appropriate conditional checks to prevent this flow from triggering itself. So let's just ignore this warning because that's what we are going to learn, what and how we are going to put the trigger condition. So let's see what happens. I'll just go to my app and I'm just going to add a tenant here. Okay, here it is. I'll just save it. The record has been submitted successfully. Let's see in the SharePoint list. The test record is here. Now let's see what happens here. We'll wait for a minute or two to get the flow triggered. So if you can see, the first instance has started because we have created a tenant record. The flow has run now. If I keep refreshing this, well, you can see it here now. I've got the notification for the approval notification, and also another instance has started because in the first instance we had updated the item. You can see this, we have you executed this update item that have initiated another flow run. So I should get another notification. So this will keep on going. So one after another, every minute the flow will trigger itself and it will go in infinite. So if you can see, I got another notification. This will keep going because we haven't added any condition on when the flow should trigger. As you can see, it's keep running and keep getting the notification. So okay, for now I'll just turn it off because otherwise it will keep going in the infinite loop. So what you need to do, how you can set the trigger condition so that you make sure that the flow runs only when it is required. So if you go to your trigger, whatever trigger you have, whether it is item created, modified, deleted, item created or modified, go to the settings, and if you scroll down, there is an option here, trigger condition. Specify one or more expression which must be true for the trigger to fire. If you click on add, this is the place where you need to write the trigger condition. Now you might wonder what is the syntax, how we can write it, what all things we need to write it. Well, you can use the same expression which you use here in the any of the action below. Like let's say if you go and add a condition here, let's say, and if you add expression here, for example, equals, select your column, whichever it is, let's say approval status, and you want to run this flow when the status is in progress. Okay, so same expression you have to use, similar expression, similar functions, whatever functions you can use here. You can use same syntax for your condition. So I'll just delete this. Let's go back here and I'll just paste this. Only thing is you have to add this @ sign at the beginning. @ equals to your column and then the value. You can make use of any function here. So here are some of the examples. Let's say you want to run your trigger, run your flow, or trigger your flow when the status, for example, some choice column is there, task status choice column. When it is done, and only when the task status is done, you want to trigger the flow. So this would be the condition. You can make use of and, or, nested and. You can club multiple conditions in your trigger condition. So in my case, so let me just grab the condition here. So this is my trigger condition. I have a Boolean column. When the run flow is true, then only I want to run it and the approval status is not cancelled. So I'll just copy this, go back here and done. So I'll just elaborate it here and equals. Then you have another expression here, not equals approval status. Approval status is not cancelled. Okay. So I'll just go back here, save this flow. Okay, you will still get the warning now. You can ignore the warning because you have added required trigger condition in the trigger. Okay. Now let's just give it a try again. I'll go back to my tenants app and try to add a new tenant record. Let's see what happened this time. First, let's just turn this flow on and I'll just cancel all of these flows. Okay, so let's just go ahead and create another record. Okay, I'll just save this tenant record. Now let's observe what happens, how many times the flow get triggered and how many times we get the notification. So these are all old notification. I'll just delete these. Let's wait for the flow to trigger. Okay, so you can see it here. The flow has been triggered and I have received the notification as well. Now let's wait for another couple of minutes to see if it is triggering itself again or not. So ideally it should not because we have added a trigger condition. Now in our case, what I have done, I'll show you here if I edit the flow. So usually I use a Boolean column which will specify whether to trigger the flow or not. And in every update item here within the flow, I specify this to no. So whenever I specify it to no, it will not satisfy the trigger condition and it will not trigger my flow. And in case when you want to trigger the flow itself, or from your PowerApps, if you want to trigger the flow, if the approver is approving it either from PowerApps or from the flow within here. So when I get the response, I want to, let's say, run it again. So I'll just set it to yes. Then it will trigger the flow again. Okay. So that's how you can maintain a column which will help you to identify when you want to run the flow. Or you can make use of course, any status column or any other column, and you keep on changing the value of it and use that column in the trigger condition. So let's just refresh and see. It's been more than a minute, 2 minutes now, and there is no another instance triggered. So that means, yeah, our condition is working. So I'll just show you the condition again. So let's just go back to the presentation. So as I said, you can make use of any function which you are using usually in the expression in the flow. You can make use of any of these functions to define or to build your trigger condition. And it can't be simple. It can be as complex as this, where you have or equals or greater than, less than, multiple nested conditions. On that basis you can define, okay, when do you want to trigger the flow. So here it is, you just have to go to your trigger settings, and this is the place where you need to put the condition. Well, that's it in today's video. I hope this will help you guys. I'll put this some of the trigger condition examples in the description. Thank you so much for watching.